Welcome back to the Alts Podcast. I'm your host, Horatio Ruiz. We bring you industry leaders and creators to give their insights on the rapidly changing and exciting world of alternative assets. Opinions expressed on this podcast by the host and podcast guests are for informational purposes only and should not be considered investment advice. Podcast hosts and guests may maintain positions in the offerings discussed in this podcast. The intro song, Fishing for Pets, is written and composed by Alan Goldshire from his latest release, Live at the Lakeview Lounge. Our guest today is Victor Ma, founder of Nf.td. Victor is a serial entrepreneur, from running popular social media accounts to running a family-owned restaurant and buying and selling domain names. Victor actually sold us the alts.co domain name. His latest project is Nf.td, your link in bio for Web3, where you can mint your online username and sell it like any other NFT, with the ability to share all your social media accounts in one place. Victor's idea for Nf.td comes from his experience with domain names and owning a form of online real estate. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Victor. So I know that we were talking about, how I found out you had a restaurant in Brooklyn. And I was like, all right, man. So on top of like the domain stuff and on top of Nf.td, I was like, do you also own a restaurant?
Yeah, we did. I was one of the partners. It was a family business. So it was my dad, my cousin, our family friend, and I. Four of us. We had an opportunity to take over a space in downtown Brooklyn, very commercial district. Right off like a main street. At that time in 2016, it was kind of like a food desert. Not a lot of good food options. And we were brainstorming and came up with the idea of like a fast casual, Chinese restaurant. So our mission, our goal was to basically take authentic Chinese food and format it into a familiar setting, for like a lunch, fast casual crowd. We spent 8 months doing demolition and construction. It was a pawn shop before the space, actually, believe it or not. So, 8 months of hauling rubble and mixing concrete and, a lot of trips to Home Depot and restaurant supply stores in New York and kind of building out the space. And then we opened in December 2016. So it was really busy when we opened. We basically jumped straight into operating a restaurant, 6-7 days a week until COVID. We closed during COVID and never opened again. So, we had a restaurant and it was a great experience. I wouldn't trade it for anything. Working with family is fulfilling but tough at the same time. You're very close to the people you work with, both good and bad. But it was around that time, running operating the restaurant where I kind of started thinking more about, online stuff and kind of the digital world as opposed to the physical world, and got really into domain investing right around 2017, late 2017. So about a year after the restaurant opened.
I imagine that you would have been a domain guy first, and that then you kind of had this opportunity to open the restaurant afterward. How did you get into that domain investing side?
Yeah, that's a good question. I kind of was always interested in domain names. I've always thought of them as real estate, but on the internet. It's kind of like the only piece of the internet you could own at that time, before NFTs and kind of blockchain technology. So I've always, thought of it that way and never really kind of pursued it until the restaurant opened and started thinking more about, foot traffic and real estate and kind of bringing that point of view to the online world. And, it wasn't until I came across an article, I think on .io domains, so kind of alternative extensions, .io, .ai, the kind of popular country code CCTLD top level domains, when I kind of went down the domain rabbit hole.
So just to kind of tie it together, you were in the restaurant business, right? So you were looking to kind of start that up. So you always had that kind of business background, that entrepreneurial kind of spirit. And then I guess in some ways it's kind of crazy, like starting that business, helping to operate that business with your family, kind of got the gears turning a little bit more toward real estate as a business. And then now, how about real estate? You made that jump to the internet. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. And, before the restaurant industry, I actually had like large social media accounts. So I had like large Twitter accounts, large Instagram accounts, a couple 100,000 followers at that time. This is like 2013, 2014, and was basically monetizing those with like paid shout outs. And, that was kind of the business model, 8, 9 years ago at that time. it'll, kind of ties into the domain world of like, just another digital asset you can kind of work and build an audience around and build a community around, and kind of see how that grows.
What kind of content did you have?
It was very like it was like comedy, kind of like meme accounts.
Yeah. Okay, so you were familiar with having like branding, right? I guess a lot of it goes into is branding, and the followers are expecting a certain kind of content from you. And then so you have that experience. You do the restaurant and domains. And you mentioned before, so there's so many things I'm just trying to like juggle together because it's so cool the evolution, right, of how you kind of have gone about things. How did you go about investing in domains? Like, was that something that you went through like an encyclopedia and like looked at certain words, or were you looking for one word names that would fit into the .ios that you had discovered? How did you start?
Yeah, that's a good question. If I had been born in a different decade, let's say like late 70s or early 80s, and kind of was around for when the .coms were first being registered, I think that would have been a great opportunity, obviously, to snatch those up. But by the time I was using the internet, all the great .com domains had been taken for a number of years already, and you'll oftentimes hear people say things like, .com is king, and in some ways it is. It's the most widely adopted, most popular domain extension on the internet by far. And it has, decades and probably trillions of dollars of, advertising and brand recognition. And, there's no dispute that the most valuable domain sales are always going to be in .com for one words. But having a .com domain is not realistic for a lot of companies. There are a lot of companies called Beacon and Mesh and Doc and Parse, kind of like one word tech domains. And there can only be one beacon.com. There can only be one mesh.com, and it's likely impossible for these companies to get their exact match.com domains. So these alternative extensions that tech has kind of adopted, like .io for general tech, .ai for artificial intelligence, .co is popular for kind of direct-to-consumer brands, .gg for esports, .ar for augmented reality, and so on. These are great for startups, for younger companies to brand around, and they kind of, in some ways, are better than .com because they give people an easy way to immediately get what your company is doing. So if your company is Mesh, let's say, for example, and your domain is mesh.xyz, I can safely assume in 2022 that you're a Web3 company. And if your company is Mesh and your domain is mesh.ai, I can assume that you're incorporating some sort of, AI into your tech somehow. It kind of is a shortcut, and it's a nice shortcut for people to have.
So what are you seeing in the space right now? Like, what are some of the more popular extension names that you're seeing? Can you talk some more about what some of those trends are?
Yeah, if you're looking to become a Web3 company, I would say .xyz is the most popular domain extension. There were a couple of companies and, a pretty big VC that was using .xyz a number of years ago. And it kind of just hit a tipping point last year where it seemed like every Web3 company was using .xyz. .io started becoming quite popular in the early 2010s, I would say, in kind of general tech. And a few years later, you would see .ai is becoming very popular for .ai, and .gg the past couple of years for esports. So that's kind of where I like to invest, are these one-word domains in country code extensions that I can see being adopted for something else than just their country abbreviation. And it's fun to think about kind of what those options could be. .vc is popular for, venture capital firms. But I've been seeing some more and more, .ids around for, companies doing identity tech. I saw a .pm a couple weeks ago for a company specializing in product management tools. So it's really up to someone's creativity and their own brandability on what they want to use, really.
So if someone wants to get started investing like in domain names, right? Are all the good ones taken? Like, how should they approach the market? Is it a matter of coming up with domain names or finding the right buying opportunities?
In a lot of these extensions, all the good one words have been taken for a couple of years already, usually. So for someone like me, who I would say is fairly new to domain investing, I've only been doing it for 3 or 4 years, probably at this time. I spent a lot of time researching domain extensions, looking at marketplaces, looking at expiration auctions, and kind of typing in words I like into extensions I like, seeing what the landing page is like, seeing if it's for sale. I know you had a great interview with Slade a couple months ago from Loomis, and he was talking about being like an internet sleuth and kind of sleuthing and kind of having to do the research on who owns the domain. And once you find them, seeing if it's for sale, and if it is for sale, kind of inquiring what the price is. A lot of my time is spent on domaining is doing kind of research like that.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Slade before. I know he contacted you about Stefan and Wyatt being interested in buying, alts.co. So you sold us the alts.co domain name, and I want to know if you could take us through that process, that meeting of the minds that Slade was so really good at describing in that podcast that you mentioned.
Yeah. So for someone who wants to sell domains, I think there are really only three real options to do that. One is through a broker. So, either through yourself or through a broker doing outbound outreach. So either you reach out to companies you think would be a good fit, or you hire a broker to do the outreach for you. Two is listing on a marketplace. So listing on like Afternic, AFTERNIC. That's kind of like a domain marketplace network. They kind of cross list to like GoDaddy and Namecheap and some of the other registrars. And then three is having like a landing page. So either creating your own landing page or using something like FD or domain.io or dan.com, and literally having a page that says this domain is for sale, buy it now or contact me. So I think I had alts.co on a landing page and then also listed on the marketplaces. I think it was on Afternic also. And I've received a number of inquiries in the couple of years that I had it from other companies, none that were as serious as alts.co, as alternative assets, as you guys. So the conversations didn't really go that far. So when I received an email from Slade, Slade actually, I think, used the registrar's who is contact form. So the registrar for alts.co, I had it as was at Dynadot. And some registrars, because the who is are hidden now, they're under who is privacy, they'll allow like kind of like a back channel contact form. Not every registrar does that, but some do. Like Dynadot does that, GoDaddy, Porkbun, a couple other ones. So that's how Slade was able to get in contact with me, and through that we kind of started just chatting about the domain and kind of following to see what next steps were.
Just out of curiosity, are there any other digital assets that you invest in? Like maybe NFTs or anything outside of the domain space?
So mostly domains in terms of digital assets, and I don't have a lot of domains. There's different ways to go about your portfolio also if you're investing in domains. Some people specialize in two-word.coms. Some people specialize in kind of made up brandable words. Some specialize in one word country code domains like me. So I think it's important to kind of do your research and see what's selling. Namebio.com is a great resource on kind of looking at historical sales. You can kind of break it down by extension, by date. They're amazing. And, analyzing what the trends are and what the market is, and kind of seeing where you're able to fit in. So, I only have probably 20 or 30 .io domains, 20 or 30 .ai domains. I think I have like 6 or 7 .xyz domains. So my portfolio isn't huge. So, you have to kind of take into account your investment, your sales expectations, and kind of what average sell-through rate is for a portfolio, which can be quite small sometimes. 1 to 2%, they say, is the average amount.
All right. So why domains? and that part of the Web3 space, and not so much, say, NFTs, which is what most people think of when we talk about digital assets. What was it about domains that kind of drew you in?
I wish I got into NFTs earlier, like everyone else. But, they say domain names are like the original NFTs. It's like the part of the internet that you could actually own at one point. And, now with the introduction of blockchain technology, you're able to own digital assets a lot easier and be able to see who owns what and be able to, transact and transfer those assets, easier too. So it's opened up a whole new world of, what could be possibly owned online. But to answer your question, I think, domains were interesting to me from a words having value perspective. I've always thought of words as having value. I always wondered why a brand would pay for a word that was more valuable than another word. On that same front, another kind of digital asset I've always thought about were usernames, social media usernames. So it's a kind of like a flex to have like a short social media handle, on Instagram or on Twitter. If you have like a 1 or 2 character Instagram handle or a 1-word Instagram handle or a 1-word Twitter handle, let's say your name, for example, if you had, at Horatio on Instagram or at Horatio on Twitter, it's somewhat of a flex because you were there early, you recognized it, or you're able to secure that somehow. So it was kind of thinking of those two things, words having value and social media handles where, I kind of came up with the idea of Nf.td, Nf.td.
That's such an interesting explanation about words having value and some being more valuable than others, which takes us right into your next venture, Nf.td. Can you talk about what Nf.td is and the value of what you're doing, which is, minting your own Web3 username?
Yeah, so we're building Nf.td as the link in bio for Web3. So our entire mission is to kind of bridge the gap between, Web2 and Web3. So we want to give people an easy, simple, elegant way to signal they're part of Web3, that they're part of the community, that they're, interested in NFTs, interested in DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, through something that they're already familiar with, which is their link in bio. So for people that don't know, link in bio is basically it's like a type of site that makes it very easy for you to organize a lot of links into one link. And the reason why link in bios have become popular is because social media sites like Instagram and Twitter only allow one URL in your bio. So you can only have one link in your social media profile, essentially. So instead of having to constantly, change that out or, having to kind of have all these workarounds, link in bio companies realize that, they just made it very easy for someone to kind of aggregate all their links into one link, might be a tool people would be interested in using. So we're basically doing that same thing, but incorporating Web3 elements into that. So, like you said, a user can, on our site, once they connect their wallet, their Ethereum wallet, they can mint their username as an NFT. So if you wanted Horatio, for example, nf.td/Horatio, you can mint that as a username. And we would actually, through our smart contract, basically generate a custom SVG for you that is an NFT. And the metadata in that NFT allows you to customize your profile on our site, your link in bio on our site. And you can, once you're in, you can add your links very easily, and then also verify your profile picture through your wallet and verify your, your ENS domain if you have like a .eth domain as well.
So you can mint your username and put a link, for example, like on your Twitter page, and that can link like to your other social media accounts?
Exactly. So it's just like any other URL. It's like any other link in bio. You can put it on your Twitter profile. You can put it on your Instagram profile. You can put it in your, your email footer if you want.
I imagine that there might be other like link in bio companies that maybe have already done something similar in Web 2. So I guess my question is like, how is Nf.td, the Web 3 aspect, maybe a little bit different than, say, the Web 2 aspect, where you had companies already doing the link in bio theme?
Yeah, Web3 moves so fast. I'm less worried about other link in bio companies doing what we're doing, because if you don't understand Web3, if you're not part of what's going on, it's hard to kind of grasp what's happening because it moves so fast. So we're, you know, about to launch in private beta pretty soon, in the next couple of weeks, and we're going to have a couple hundred private beta testers who will use the platform and mint their usernames, customize their profiles, and start sharing. So, our entire mission is to basically, we want to kind of onboard as many people from Web 2 into Web 3 as possible. So in the same way where a lot of these profile picture NFTs, like, all the Bored Apes and Doodles and all the other ones you see on Twitter, kind of help to onboard people to Web3 through something that they were familiar with, which is their profile picture. We're doing that same thing through their URL.
So on your site, Nf.td, you mentioned the opportunities that there are for OGs, which is the first 2,500 people to mint their username on NFT. Can you talk about that, about the OGs and maybe the perks of being one?
Yeah, so the term OGs actually comes from OG usernames, which is a term you'll see when people talk about short Instagram and Twitter handles usually. So, first name Instagram handles, or, 1, 2, or 3 letter Instagram or Twitter handles. Those are kind of called OG usernames. And there's kind of like niche communities that talk about this kind of stuff, in these terms. So for us, the first 2,500 usernames on NFT are OG usernames. So, it's also kind of a way for us to give back to our early supporters. If you're one of the first people to, mint a username and kind of believe in the platform, we're going to, give you, kind of OG exclusive perks and benefits, like, an OG badge, which is like our version of like a verified badge on your profile. You get early access to upcoming features. We're thinking very carefully about other features for NFT, like DAO badges. You can kind of display what DAOs you're a part of on your profile in an elegant way. And, secure messaging between NFT profiles as well. So you get, early access to those test features, and kind of other, perks and discounts and things we're building in.
Another part of NFT is that you mentioned building a community around it. How do you plan on doing that? What is the argument for even building a community in Web3? And I see it as it's a trend. It's definitely happening. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, especially the last couple of years, as people are transitioning more of their lives, online to the digital world, and kind of sometimes struggling to find their place online, it's more and more important to build the tools, for people to find a community, to be able to aggregate around things they're interested in and be able to chat about things they're interested in a way that is easy for people, in a way that makes sense for people. So, right now, the most popular platform for kind of chatting is Discord. Discord was a app built for gaming originally, I believe, and it's kind of been adopted by, kind of crypto and Web3 in the past couple of years. And you can kind of see the problems that Discord has if you ever open the app. I mean, it's full of DM bots and kind of it's cluttered and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's one, is like kind of figuring out how to let people communicate about things that they're interested in and gather around communities they're interested in. But also, as we kind of move more and more of our lives online, I think it's important also to give people an easy way to, signal, about what they're interested in. So, profile pictures, have, PFP avatars have, basically taken over Twitter if you're on crypto Twitter or NFT Twitter or Web3 Twitter. And, we think that NFT, your link in bio is going to be, a signal for people, in a simple and elegant way that they're familiar with already.
You mentioned before that you're in private beta with about 100 users. Can someone still get involved with that? Or how can anyone interested start to get involved with NFT? And maybe even can you talk about, like, once the private beta ends, what else do you have in the works?
Yeah, so our private beta is almost ready to launch. So we're pretty much have the entire list ready. And, depending on how our private beta launch goes, we'll have obviously a public launch, soon after that. So the best way to get your username early before someone else does is to follow our Twitter. So got NFT, twitter.com/GOT-NFTD, got NFT. We'll be making announcements there, and then, on our Discord also. The next steps for us are to kind of, work with the community that we're going to build and introducing features that make the most sense. We're big believers in DAOs, so we think DAO badges will be interesting for people. We would love to do things like custom, NFT artist collaborations on themes, custom themes and custom backgrounds. And, one thing that's interesting with NFT and kind of ties back into the OG usernames is, because the username you mint is an NFT, you can actually buy and sell NFT usernames. So just like any other NFT, you can actually buy and sell, a username on our site, on a marketplace like, OpenSea or something else, because it's an NFT, it's essentially what it is. So, we're thinking, carefully about the NFT username aspect of the site, but then also the, community, link in bio part of the site too.
Victor, thanks so much for talking with me and letting us learn more about Nf.td. What's the best way to get in touch with you?
So the best way is through my Nf.td page, Nf.td/Victor. It has all my links on it. It has my, email, my Twitter. All my links are, in one place, which is, my link in bio, my Nf.td.
Of course, that makes sense. And I should add, thanks for selling us the alt.co domain name. That was a big deal for us when it went through. Once we decided that Alternative Assets Club wasn't quite up to par.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I love the domain for you guys. I was looking at all the podcasts that you've done, and, congrats on so many shows. It seems like you've interviewed a lot of, awesome people. I'm totally honored to be a guest. I don't think I quite match up to, your other guests, just yet, but I had a lot of fun today and loved being here, and I can chat about domain names and, NFTs forever. So I really appreciate it.
Hey man, it's all about the guests. And no, I think that you just gave out so much valuable information, and I'm sure you're going to do very well with Nf.td. So hopefully we can reconnect in the near future.
Yeah, definitely. Sounds good.
What a great conversation with Victor. A lot of his ideas led us into the mind of an entrepreneur and the way they see marketplaces taking shape. His latest project, Nf.td, has all the potential in the world, taking your username and tokenizing it for all time. At Alt, we wish Victor all the best, and we give him a big thanks for selling us such a cool domain name. If you enjoyed today's podcast, let others know about it. We find our guests so interesting and knowledgeable, and I know others will too. Or leave a review or hit the follow button. Until the next episode, take care.